Hello, we are Jeremiah and Danielle, hosts of the Ark Theory Podcast. Welcome back to episode 6, and we're so happy you're here. Obviously, this is not our podcast studio, and we haven't posted a podcast in quite some time, and we're kind of going to go in today with why that is, and we kind of just wanted to update you on where we're at.
So there's been a lot kind of going on, more specifically within the last few months, but I think to kind of fully understand and get the full update as far as like where we're at now, we just wanted to provide a little bit of context around what's been going on. So for those of you who don't follow us on Instagram, we've been kind of known as like the textured art couple. You've probably seen some of our stuff online there. We started Ark Theory about 2 years ago. I quit my full-time job for us to go and pursue this business together, and it's been an incredible journey of really just, being able to do this together. It's been a dream of ours for a very long time. And we were able to sell commission pieces, sell courses. But prior to even starting our business of textured art, we had always had this idea that Ark Theory wasn't going to be attached to any specific product, because we always kind of thought we were going to end up doing something more along the lines of like teaching and coaching. But we didn't really know how we were going to be able to do that if we didn't have some type of platform, and we didn't think anybody would take us seriously unless we could prove that we actually knew what we were talking about. And so we decided to pick a product and basically start a business and prove not only to other people but to ourselves that we did know how to be entrepreneurs and we were able to create a business. And so that's kind of been our journey for the last 2 years. I'm obviously giving kind of like the quick overview. We have other podcast episodes that kind of go into like the full story if you're interested. But essentially that's been kind of our journey for the last 2 years. About a year ago, we were still doing things within the textured art space and kind of just felt this nudge that maybe we were supposed to start kind of shifting back to the original idea of what the Ark Theory even is, which is basically the idea, the theory that everybody has a unique and God-given calling that they've been given in their life. And we want to help people and encourage people to go out there, identify what their arc or their calling is, and then go out and pursue it. And so we started to get this nudge that we were supposed to kind of start heading in that direction a little bit more. We obviously didn't know exactly what that was supposed to look like. We were very heavily involved in this textured art space, selling courses. We kind of built our whole name and brand around this product. And so we felt like it was going to be kind of a difficult ask to shift out of that. And so we were just praying about what we were supposed to be doing, how that was supposed to look, and didn't really feel like we had much clarity on exactly how to do that, but really started to feel more and more that the texture art thing wasn't going to be what we were doing long term necessarily. And so we were still selling pieces, we were still selling courses, but we really just kind of stopped kind of putting a lot of our effort into that and trying to figure out like what the next step for Ark Theory was going to be. And so during that time, one of the things that we felt like we were supposed to do was kind of start a podcast. We really wanted to kind of get some of the stuff that we wanted to talk about through more like long form, like a podcast, as opposed to just these kind of quick reels. And so we started this podcast about 6 months ago. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I feel like what we really felt like the Lord put it on our hearts to continue to talk about like building your ark, finding your God-given calling and pursue that. And we really just felt like that's what we were supposed to be talking about, and like reminding people that they do have a purpose here. And it's our responsibility to go and pursue that. And through that, you can impact and encourage so many other people. And so I feel like with this podcast, we were like, okay, like this kind of makes sense. Like, let's talk about that. But we didn't, I feel like for the most part, like when you hear people's journey, like you hear all the things that they went through and how they got through it. And you're like, wow, like that's so powerful and encouraging, all the things that you went through. But we've always felt like there's something even more powerful about actually witnessing people like walk that journey out. And as much as it is helpful, like hearing all the things people went through, like we wanted our podcast to be a place where you can see the in-between part, where people have this calling or like this call placed over their life, and it's like, what do they do to actually like pursue that, and not just like just not see that endpoint. And so we wanted like this podcast to be a place where you can just get examples of people like walking through the fire. I think with that in mind, and with what we're going through right now, we were supposed to be sharing more about our journey, so you can kind of see what we're going through in real time, not just like, oh my gosh, we went through this crazy thing 6 months ago, but we're here now and we made it through, and like, these are all the things that God did. And we want to talk about like all the things that God is doing right now.
Oh yeah, because I think like a lot of times, especially through like the social media space, it's easy to kind of fantasize about like how people's life are, because they're only showing you the good things. Yeah. They're only showing you the new products that are coming out for whatever it might be.
And all the successes. Yeah.
Yeah, we wanted to kind of show like we're entrepreneurs, we're also parents, we're also family members, you know, like there's more to us than just the business. And I think it's easy for people to look at this Ark Theory business and assume like everything is just perfect. They had immediate success, whatever, you know, what people might assume. And so we wanted to kind of basically be able to fill in the gaps and kind of like show people, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you feel like you're trying to pursue the call of God, it's not always going to look a specific way. And sometimes there's going to be trials that you face. And we wanted to kind of help people just walk through that and be an encouragement to you that despite the things that are going on, that your calling is important, that God wants you to go out and pursue that. And that doesn't mean that there's not going to be trials that you're going to face or challenges that you're going to face, but with God, you can overcome them. And the person that you are on the other side of that is the person you're going to need to be able to handle the calling that you've been given.
Yeah.
And so that's been a big part of like this podcast and what we really wanted to kind of convey on that. So with all that being said, like we talked about a year ago, kind of felt this like nudge to kind of shift our focus of what we were doing from less product based and more to kind of going back to that original message of helping and encouraging people. Mm-hmm. If any of you guys are business owners, you know, like that's obviously a little bit scary, because your main source of income now is potentially going to change, and starting a podcast isn't by any means an immediate money making endeavor. And so it felt just a little bit like we were kind of questioning, like, God, like, what are you doing here? Like, how are we going to be able to pay our bills? What is this going to look like? How are we going to be able to get through this? And we kind of felt like it eventually got to the point where God was like, okay, like I really think it's time that Jeremiah goes back to work. And so we prayed about that. Really, we're trying to figure out if that was the right move. To be honest with you, it was kind of hard, because we prided ourselves a little bit in being full-time entrepreneurs, and we're excited about that and felt like we were finally living out our dream of being able to run a business together. And by going back to work, it almost felt like we were failing in some sense, that it's, you know, we're supposed to have on paper this successful business that's doing so well, but he still has to go back and get a job. And so we wrestled with that for a while, but eventually it just felt like, you know, this is what needs to happen. And so it just so happened that the church that we attend was hiring for a content creator position, which is essentially exactly what we've been doing with Ark Theory. So doing a lot of photography, videography, social media, website, things like that. And so we thought, wow, this is perfect. Really felt like that door was open to us. And so I applied and ended up getting the job. That was back at like the very beginning of December. And so for the last 6 months, I've worked full-time with the church. We've also been doing different things within Ark Theory. You just may or may not have noticed we haven't been quite as consistent as maybe we were in the past, just with everything going on, the new rhythms of life, raising 2 kids.
Yeah, but still like doing Ark Theory on the side, and still, you know, releasing different products, trying different things, like trying to figure out like, okay, Lord, like which direction do you want us to take this? If it's not specifically textured art, what is it, you know? And so I feel like we were trying a bunch of different things, and then we landed on this idea to do these vision check banners, which some of you may have seen, but we were like really stoked on that idea. You want to explain it?
Yeah, and maybe like we can put a little picture so you guys can have a little example of what we're talking about. But essentially, if you've ever been to like an eye doctor and you see those charts, they have the big letters at the top, and then line by line they just get increasingly smaller. You're supposed to cover one eye, and they kind of gauge how much of that you can read. So we essentially took that same idea and thought, wow, what a cool idea to be able to put onto like a canvas. But instead of it being just random letters, what if we picked a verse of the Bible and then the first letter of each word of that verse would basically be what's on that chart, and then at the bottom you could see the whole verse laid out. And we thought it would be like an incredible way to be able to help people memorize scripture. One thing that we wanted to do from the beginning of this year is just get better at memorizing scripture, and we thought, this is helping us, maybe it can help other people too. So you could read the whole scripture, and then you could cover the bottom up, and you could look at that chart and see the first letter, and hopefully help that kind of engrave into your mind and help you remember it. The vision check just felt like a clever way to kind of just like, it's not only like vision from the sense of an actual like vision board, but vision as in aligning with God's vision for your life, aligning with the calling that you have, and being able to kind of use that as a tool. They also looked really cool, and so it's kind of a fun way to have verses on your wall in a kind of unique way that we hadn't seen before.
And so we released those, and then pretty much like the week after, you started having blurry vision.
So we dropped the vision check, and then literally a week later, I like was telling her that I started noticing like blurry vision, which
literally out of nowhere.
And was kind of, obviously everybody likes their vision and stuff, but especially like as a photographer. Well, no, but I mean, it's always like a funny thing. It's like, well, as a photographer, it must be so hard to lose your vision. Like, it's hard for anybody to lose vision, but especially as a photographer, I really started noticing all of a sudden, like looking through the camera lens, like it was really hard for me to even tell if a picture was in focus or not. And so I was telling her, like, this is really weird. I feel like my vision has just been blurry. I really need to schedule an appointment. So I scheduled an appointment with my optometrist. She took some images of my eyes and said, like, wow, I'm noticing some potential like retina detachment and some bleeding in the back of your eye. I really think you need to go see a specialist. And so long story short, I immediately went to a specialist here in town, started treatment right away. They were doing different things, said potentially I might need surgery, but they're going to keep an eye on it, doing some like injection treatments and lasers, kind of spread out and kind of see if they could keep it at bay. And so that was obviously a little bit scary, but we were just trusting, like, okay, like, thank God we were able to catch it, because I ended up getting diagnosed with something called diabetic retinopathy. I've been a type 1 diabetic since I was 4 years old. I'm now 30, so I've dealt with diabetes for the last 26 years, but diabetic retinopathy is something that can occur after years of having diabetes. For some people, it is very minor and they don't notice anything at all. In my particular case, mine is very advanced. It is an asymptomatic disease, so a lot of times you don't notice anything is wrong until it's too late. So in my particular case, by the time my vision was already blurry, I was already pretty deep in the woods with this condition. And so I was talking to my specialist, trying to figure out basically what my options might be. My vision was blurry in both eyes, and getting just kind of harder to do basic things like working and stuff. And so we were just kind of trying to figure out, like, this seems so strange. Like, we dropped this vision check, I'm losing my vision. I just get this job within the last few months to be a photographer and videographer, which, you know, obviously you need your eyes for. And so we were just praying, like, what are we supposed to do now? And then a couple weeks ago, I was leaving work and I lost all central vision in my right eye, just completely like a blurred line over everything in my right eye. And so I called Danielle and I was like, hey, I don't know what's going on, but I need you to come pick me up. My left eye is super blurry, no vision in my right eye, and I don't feel comfortable driving. And so she came and picked me up, ended up having to get scheduled for an emergency surgery for them to hopefully try to reattach the retina, get out some of that scar tissue, and just kind of do their best to kind of fix the issue that I was dealing with. And so, again, obviously all of this has been scary, but we just really felt, at least for me, like, for some reason, despite everything going on, just kind of had this peace that God was, like, in control and that he was working. And even from that what seemed like such a short period of time, it was like, honestly, from like within like the first month, getting my first appointment to then needing surgery, like everything happened. And then getting surgery all within about a month's period. Like, we had already had so many different people reaching out, so many different people praying. We had so many people like sending text messages, telling us like success stories of people that they've had that had a similar condition or had some type of eye issue and that had been resolved. And people kind of all over the place praying. We have friends that are in Zambia right now, Danielle's sister who was in South Korea, and just like constantly getting like bombarded with messages, people saying like, we're praying, you know, my church has been incredible. Just, you know, having having people pray over me and our family, and just like, you know, we just felt this like kind of like warm embrace of our community just coming together and really just like supporting us.
2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks, we started this like Joshua Bible study, and we named the Bible study We the Body. And we were pretty much just going through the book of Joshua, and the focus of that Bible study was the community of people coming together, each one of them playing their part to get God's people back to the promised land. In that study, like, we broke it down, we looked at everybody's role, and we were just like, wow, everyone rising up to like the purpose that God has for them allowed God's promise to pass. We were in the thick of just like talking about like how incredible God's body is, and whether that's like with your church or just like the community that you have, like everyone like working together for a common goal. And for us, that common goal is to bring the Lord's kingdom down and have his will come to pass and have him work through us. And we were talking so much about like this community, and like, even though our life right now is chaos, absolute chaos, and there's so much unknown going on, but like the thing that it just keeps getting highlighted to us is how beautiful God's community is that he has for us. The body of God coming together to support us is insane. Pretty much for the past like 2 weeks, like since you got your surgery, it has just felt like a roller coaster of like, okay, we're out of the woods. No, you're not. We're out of the woods. No, you're not. And then it's like, but the thing that has remained so consistent is God's faithfulness and how he has been like answering our prayers, but in like a way that's like not how we would expect, you know?
In a way only he could do it. Like, you couldn't write it.
I know that was kind of just like a detour, but that's been like such a underlying thing in all of this that we see like the Lord working in. It's like through his body, and it's just been like really, really cool.
We could talk for 3 hours about every detail and every way that God has kind of shown up in this mix, but for the sake of time and not to get into all of the details, like, it just has been like an incredible closeness and like anchoring that we both feel that God just has us like right in his palm. And it's like, yes, things are going bad, and yes, things feel crazy and scary, and there's a lot of unknowns. There is this kind of just like sense of peace that like God has this under control, and we're leaning into that as much as possible. I mean, you know, like you talk about James saying like, consider it all joy when you go through suffering. It's like, we're holding on to that, because the alternative of that is playing the victim, being bitter, getting anxious. Like, you know, we're standing on the promises of God that he has this under control, that whatever calling or thing he has in my life, in our life together, that I'm gonna have enough vision to see that through, whatever that may look like, and God knows what that's going to be, and I don't have to worry about it because he has it under control. And so we're just holding on to that. The ultimate underlying tone is that God is so good, and he's taking care of us in ways that are just like indescribable. With that being said, going kind of back to the story, so a couple weeks ago I got the surgery. At this point, even to today, I have no vision in my right eye. After the surgery, they did say, like, you know, there's some oil in my eye that's supposed to be doing something to help keep my retina attached, but as of right now, my left eye is very blurry. I have no vision in my right eye. And then a friend of ours who had kind of told us about an experience they've had with some eye doctors really recommended this place and said, hey, like, I would love for you to get a second opinion, just make sure everything's on the right track. Out in San Diego, I told them, like, yeah, I would love to go, but unfortunately they're not covered in my insurance, and I'm not going to be able to get a referral to go see them. And she was gracious enough to say, like, I would love you to go, and I'd be happy to pay for your consultation, which again is another testament to God's goodness and provision.
So we go to this appointment to get the second opinion, and really going into it, all we really wanted was just confirmation that the surgery went well, and these new specialists would be doing essentially like the same treatment plan that the specialist that he was seeing would do. Right. And so just wanted that confirmation, and And we weren't even necessarily like wanting to, like thinking that we were going to transfer care because they're not covered by our insurance. And we knew that all of the surgeries that he's going to be needing multiple are like $20,000-$30,000 like each surgery.
Right.
And so yeah, we just wanted like the peace of mind that like the surgery went well and we're on the right track. And so we go to this appointment and the doctor tells us this surgery was not a good surgery and they're not very happy with it. They don't feel like it was done right, and we need to go back in immediately and pretty much redo it and complete the surgery. They feel like it was just like overall like an incomplete surgery. And so there we were figuring out, and this was all last week. Yeah. And so there we were with like two conflicting opinions, and we're just like, okay, our specialist is pretty much like stoked on the surgery, said it went really well, and then this one was like, no, it was not a success, and there could be permanent damage if the eye is left like this. And so we were just like praying and trying to figure out like, okay, Lord, like which way are you leading us to? Like we really felt like the Lord was leading us away from the specialist that he was at. And this was kind of confirmation that we're not supposed to continue care there, but and that he was like redirecting us to these specialists. And it's crazy. There's so many other people in our life that like are kind of like hearing this story, and then they know a friend and who knows a friend, whatever, who had specialists, and they all end up being the ones in San Diego. And we keep on getting redirected to them. And we're like, okay, Lord, like we feel like you're truly leading us here, but how are we going to pay for all of this, you know?
Yeah.
But ultimately, like we just trusted if the Lord was going to lead us here, he's going to provide a way. The only thing that we need to figure out right now is we almost need like a third opinion to kind of third opinion, what's it called?
Like a deciding factor.
Yeah. And then so we were praying for that, and we're like, okay, Lord, like where are we getting this third opinion from? And it was insane. So your mom was over, and we were praying, and we were just talking about like how like this whole situation just seems so chaotic and so confusing, and so like you need to make this decision fast, and what do we do? And your mom reminded us that the Lord is never gonna put you in a position to make a decision in chaos. And she said something, it was so cute, but she was like, I'm not gonna be like, what did she say? She's like, I choose number 3. And it's like, and I feel like that's seriously like how it felt, where it's just like, okay, what decision? And then it's like, that's so true, you know, like God is not a God of chaos. And we know that any chaos, confusion, just like anxiety or fear is not coming from the Lord. And so we were just like pretty much like declaring that with her and talking about like how good the Lord is and how faithful he's been, and that he's always been providing these answers for us. And like all we have to do is just trust in him, wait in his timing. And we were like saying all of that, and it was literally like clockwork. As we were saying that, we got a phone call from my cousin that is a retina specialist, and we kind of like talked the details over with him, and was giving us a consultation, and basically agreed that the specialist in San Diego, their diagnosis was right. The surgery needs to be done immediately, and that's the route that we should go.
Redone.
Yeah, it needs to be redone. And all we could say was just like, wow, Lord, like you answered that in your timing. And just going back to who God is, like he's not a God of chaos, and like he doesn't want us to be functioning out of chaos and confusion. And through all of this, it's like, just keep your eyes on him, trust his plan, and he's working things out. He's working so many things out like behind the scenes. And like all he needs us to do is just like be faithful to him and be patient. And yeah, so there's that.
Yeah. And so ultimately where we're at now is basically we have 2 additional opinions kind of confirming the same thing. There's a lot going on kind of like that's up in the air right now in terms of potentially transferring care or who really is going to ultimately be taking over from this point. So we're kind of just continuing to pray for discernment, trusting that God is going to continue to provide. Like we said, like so many people in our family, our community, our friends have just been reaching out, offering to do just incredible things to help support us, both financially, with meals, with taking care of our kids, with allowing us to be able to have time to process everything, because it has been a lot. But ultimately we know God's in control, and he's orchestrating everything, and we've seen him show up like so many times in so many different ways. And so we're doing the best we can to just hold on to each other and continue to pray and trust and see basically what the next steps are going to look like. Our concern obviously is that according to these other two doctors, this is a very time sensitive case, and so we're just praying that in God's timing we'll be able to get the care that I need, that my vision is protected in the meantime, and ultimately that God's will be done through this whole situation. So that was a lot, but we just wanted to kind of give that update. We've been kind of low-key on social media with everything going on, but we'd really appreciate if you have it in your heart to be praying for us and just kind of for discernment and coverage in the situation. Like she mentioned, there is a link below if you want to kind of read the details of the full story. But we just wanted to kind of get this out there in public and just let you know that, there's no guarantee that life won't come with its challenges, but there is a guarantee that when you put your faith in God, that he will walk through the fire with you. So just take that encouragement and trust that God's got your back despite what the circumstances might look like. And you really have no idea what God might be doing, because he sees everything and his ways are not our ways. And so we can trust that he's looking at it from a much different perspective than we are. So.
And there's so much hope. I think overall, like a lot of like even like doctors or whatever that we've talked to, or other people, like are just like saying like this is kind of like a hopeless, in a sense, like a hopeless case, and it's kind of just like like you don't know God,
you don't know my father.
You
know who my dad is.
I know. And it's like you don't know what he can do, and even like hearing the news of like, oh, okay, the surgery was not successful and there could be permanent damage. It's kind of just like, okay, that could be true with what you see, but that doesn't mean that the Lord can't still work with that and redeem anything. And if there was any extra damage done to the eye, the Lord can undo all of that, or he can still use it. And I feel like that's honestly like the hope that we're holding on to. And we know that the Lord has a plan, and all we need to do is just like put our fears and our anxieties aside and just like keep our eyes on him. And that is what keeps us going, keeps us like calm as we ride this like crazy storm, but I don't know. So always keep your eyes on Jesus. That's the only thing that is getting us through. So anyways,
we'll probably do another episode as we continue through this journey and do our best to keep everybody updated with what's going on.
But anyways, hope you have a good day. So we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for being here.